This video is for evaluating expressions. So in this, what they've given us, or what they're going to give us, is an expression, and then they're going to give us values for the variables. And all we're doing is we're playing plug and chug. We're plugging the numbers in for the letters and then solving this and working out the math. So if A equals B, and this is the substitution property, so if A equals B, then A may be replaced for B in any expression. And so you can substitute anything in here for B. If A equals 2, then wherever you see an A, it's going to equal 2. So here we've got AB squared plus C. So A is 2, so I would put a 2 in for the A, and we put parentheses around anything that we're plugging in so we can kind of keep negatives and the square roots or exponents where we need them. So here I've got B squared, and B is 4, so that would be 4 squared. Plus C is 7. And then you just use order of operations, or you can use your calculator and you type it in exactly like they show it, and you would get 39. So the most important rule in algebra, put parentheses around negative numbers. And the reason we do this is so that you know that it is a negative number and it's not a subtraction sign, so when you're substituting them into expressions. So here we've got 3x squared minus 4x. So I keep the 3, but the x is a negative 2. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. And the same thing with this x, another negative 2. So all I did was I plugged this negative 2 in for these two x's. So again, you can work this out using order of operations, or you can type it in your calculator exactly. And so usually when we type things, subtractions look a little bit different than negatives, but you can tell when I've written here, my negative signs look just like my subtraction signs. And so here, we get 20. All right, so some more practice here. A squared times B minus B squared when A equals 3 and B equals negative 4. So A is a 3, B is a negative 4, minus another B, and that one is squared. And we would get a negative 52. So anytime that you see two numbers or two letters shoved up against each other like this, so for example, just AB, this means multiply. This is the same thing as doing A times B. The same thing applies with parentheses. If you have two numbers in parentheses shoved up against each other, there's a multiplication sign squeezed in there in between. All right, so A squared times B minus B squared. So A is a 4, B is a negative 7, minus another B. So again, you can see why the parentheses are important, so we don't forget to double up here. Because sometimes you'll see that subtraction sign and you'll just forget to put a negative 7 and you'll make it minus 7. And then squared. So here we've got 4 squared times a negative 7 minus a negative 7 squared. And we get a negative 161. All right, now we've got negative y squared minus 3xy when x equals negative 4 and y equals 2. So a negative, I keep that negative, and then I put the 2. Minus 3, so x is a negative 4 and y is a 2. So if this had been a negative 2, this would have read negative, and then in the parentheses I would have had another negative 2. So again, those parentheses are very, very important. Oh, I typed that in wrong. And so you should get a 20. All right, so again, negative y squared minus 3xy. So I keep that negative, and then I plug in my y value, this negative 3. X and then y. So here, negative, and then in the parentheses, negative 3. And we should get negative 54. All right, so now we've got them in fraction form. So same process here. So a squared plus b squared, a and b are 3 and 4. So I would have 3 squared plus 4 squared over 3 minus 4. And you can type it in your calculator just like this. Alpha y1 makes you a fraction. And so you can fill in the top part of your fraction and then the bottom part of your fraction. And here we should have got negative 25. Same thing again. This time we've got negative numbers though. So negative 3 squared plus negative 5 squared, negative 3 minus a negative 5. And it's important that you use the parentheses when you're typing it in your calculator as well, especially with exponents, because your calculator does things using order of operations. All right, so we get a 17. So let me give you an example. If I do negative 3 squared in my calculator, I'm going to get a negative 9. But if I put that negative 3 in parentheses, I get a positive 9, because what it does, this means negative 1, and I'll write it up here. If I write negative 3 squared like this is like me writing negative 1 and then times 3 squared. An order of operations says you do the exponent first, then the multiplication. So it squares this, it makes it a 9, and then it multiplies by the negative 1. When I write it like this, negative 3 is the number being squared. So negative 3 times negative 3 gives me a positive 9. So be real careful with those parentheses. So here I've got a big one with parentheses, square roots, and exponents of 2, and I'm raising it to the power of 3. So x squared, so x is 2, minus 2, so x minus y, so 2 minus a negative 2. And so I'm doubling up on parentheses there. And then minus z is a negative 3 cubed. So here I've got 2 squared minus 2, 2 minus, and then I open the parentheses again. And then to do an exponent other than 2, you use this little arrow up button. You can type your 3 in. And so there we should have got 23. So now we're using the same expression, but we have different values for the variables. So x squared minus 2, and then again doubling up on the parentheses because the x is a negative. X minus y, so negative 3 minus 4. And you notice I've closed them out. So here are parentheses, open and close. Here are parentheses, open and closed. And here's my final set. So if you have an open parentheses, you always have to have a close. And then minus z cubed. And we should have got 24 there as well. All right, so last two. So negative a squared minus 2bc minus c squared. So again, negative, and then I do the negative 2 for the a. Square it minus 2b c minus c squared. So don't forget your subtraction signs. Don't mix them up with your negative signs. So negative 2 squared minus 2 times 3 times negative 3 minus a negative 3 squared. And we should have got a 5. And then our final one again, same expression, different values. So it's a negative a, so I do negative, and then I plug in the a value, a negative 3. All right. And 7 is correct. So that's it for this video.